What's going on, you guys? My name is Noah B. Welcome to Noah B Trades YouTube channel. We're going to be going over my story. A lot of you guys are probably coming from TikTok or YouTube, whatever. And a lot of you guys ask how I got started, my story, my background in trading. For those who do not know, I was blue collar my entire life. I was a lineman for 3 years and decided to quit, chase a dream. And I've been day trading for 4 years ever since. So, to give you a background of my story, how to get started, and how you boys can make that same transition as I will, I put together a full video of explaining all of that. So, let's get right into it. Basically, like majority of you guys that I'm assuming are watching this video, you've been blue collar your entire life. That's how you were raised. That's what your parents do. That's what their parents did. So that's how I grew up. My father was a cable splicer. My grandfather was a cable splicer. So they worked in the underground department, and I saw the life that they were obviously able to provide for their family. And I knew that there was always an option for me, but as any parents do, you want better for your kid. So my parents, pushed me into going to college. They wanted me to at least give it a try. I just went in to study pre-law. Actually did very, very well. I finished with like a 3.9 GPA. I'm not like a dumb kid, so that's a lot of questions that people have is like, is trading hard to get into? And we'll get into that. Like, am I too dumb to get into trading? But we'll get into that. So did really well in school, but I just knew I always had a mindset of just being an entrepreneur and making money right now, right? And I knew my dad made really good money. I know he worked hard as shit for it. He worked a lot of overtime as well, but I knew he made really good money to provide, what we had growing up. So that's what I wanted to get into. So I dropped out of school after my first year of college and I applied to the company that he worked at. He told me to get into the overhead, which I'm very glad I did. I tried to get into the gas side, couldn't get in. I tried to get into the underground, couldn't get in. Extremely happy I got into the overhead. So it wasn't like a goal of mine to be like, oh, I want to be a lineman, right? That was never a specific goal. He told me that what I would probably like the best. And luckily it worked out. So I got hired at 19. I got hired at 18 right out of school and then got hired at 19. I had to go work at a contractor for a couple months over the summer just to kind of help me get into the local power company, local utility company. I did like street lights and things like that. So I feel like it's like a similar path of a lot of guys go into, right? You want to, try to find your in. So I did street lights for a couple months and then luckily was able to get hired. So went through the training. Our training is a little bit different than a lot of probably what you guys are doing. We go in as a trainee, we get our B, and then we get our A, and then you go into the trouble room. So a little bit different. A lot of guys ask me like, "Oh, did you get your journeyman card?" And my company is just a little bit different, right? I didn't work for a contractor. That was just our progression. So I was a trainee for I think it's a year and a half. It's very hands-on, to be honest with you. Like once you get out of school, you're up in the air. You have to go up with an A, which technically would, I guess, be considered a journeyman. So very, very hands-on, which was cool, man. So I learned super fast, and was able to kind of get right into it. And I loved it, right? Like most people do. You're obsessed with it. You're obsessed with the overtime. You're obsessed with the money. I was young, man. I was 19 years old, and my first year I made over 100 grand. Just because we went to school for a couple months, we went out on the street for a couple months, and we were able to get called in. We were able to work overtime and things like that. So I was young with a good amount of money, and I was still living at home, and I lived at home all the way up until I quit. So I was able to save up a decent amount of money, which is I think is a massive reason why I was able to do what I did. So a year and a half outside of being a trainee, going to school, going back out in the field, going to school, going back on the field, you get your B, which I would assume is an apprentice, but it's very, very hands-on. Like our company didn't have an abundance of guys. So once you got your B, a year and a half later, you're a single man on the truck with a crew leader. Um, if they had their not right amount of guys, right, you would have an A and a B, but majority of the time it was just crew leader and a B on the truck. So we kind of got thrown out to it pretty quick. We never didn't really have a whole lot of crazy accidents happen and things like that with the younger guys. So the company obviously does a pretty good job. And I wouldn't even say it's the company. I would say it's the guys that are teaching you right outside in the field, right? There's a lot of really good guys, and you guys know it. You guys know the guys that you work with. You know the ones that actually care and take care of you and want you to learn the safe way. And then you have guys that just don't really want anything to do with you, and they just kind of go up in the air. They don't really teach you and things like that, right? So I was really fortunate to get with guys that, man, they would send me up in the air. They would walk me through everything, and I was able to learn pretty quick. Um, but it's a fast process. Like I said, I was 19 years old, up working by myself, so it is a fast process. But it was cool, man, and I loved it. Like most people do, you become obsessed with it. You become obsessed with the overtime. You become obsessed with the work, man. It was great. So I was 19, making 100 some thousand dollars a year my first year. And as things progressed, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do forever, right? This is my career, this is my job, right? Like I'm obsessed with this. My dad has created an amazing life for our family, and this is what I want to do as well. And then, time goes on, and I think a lot of people realize it, right? A lot of people realize, man, this is cool. You make a lot of money, but you're almost a slave to the job, right? You really are. You're kind of at the hands of the company. If they need you to work, you're working, right? And it's that, mandatory whatever clause that they have. And I got the first taste of that was Christmas. And yeah, I mean, I was 19 years old, but like, when you're 19 years old, you're still a kid almost, right? So, I had to get forced to work on Christmas. And that was like, man, it's kind of crazy, right? Like forced to work on Christmas, missing my family. I'm not gonna wake up. It was the first time to, wake up for Christmas morning, and I'm like, man, that's gonna be tough when I have a family and kids, and when I get put on mandatory shift. So that kind of was the first taste of like, man, I don't know, like this, I love this. This is cool, but I don't know if that's what I want, right? That just is it worth it? I don't know, right? You only my thought process, how I've always lived, how I still live is you live one life, right? And this is everyone's first time ever living. So nobody has ever perfected the game of life. So you really have absolutely no idea what's right, what's wrong. And for me, being that young, I realized that pretty early, and I was just, do I want my one life to be this, right? Do I want to be potentially away from my family certain times? Do I want to be on call all the time? Do I want to be risking my life every time I go into work? Do you make good money? Yes. Can you make that kind of money elsewhere? Clearly, yes. Right. So I realized that young, but it didn't really stop me. I was like, oh, this is still cool. Right. Like, I love it. And it's the thing is, man, I get a lot of messages on TikTok, and we'll get into it. And it's just like, oh, some people just aren't made for it. Some people just can't cut it. It was truly, and you take it as you wish, but we'll talk about that later. It was never about that. I love it. I still do. Like I teach a lot of linemen right now, and they always talk about it, and I love it, right? And I miss it. I see stuff, and I'm like, man, I really miss doing that. But so when I see all my students talk about it, it's two parts of it. I miss the work, but I also don't, right? And to go back to the part of, oh, some people just can't cut it. What's funny is most of the time the people that are commenting that are probably the ones that are just shit workers. But if you couldn't cut it, and the people that quit and do their own things, they couldn't cut line work, I promise you those same people aren't going and building six-figure businesses and going and making more money than they could and ever did at line work. So that's another issue. That's another topic. But that's just, I guess, just an ego thing. But realistically, boys, I mean, if a lot of you, I'm assuming, are linemen, and I'm sure a lot of you guys work your ass off all day, especially if you work at a contractor. I worked at like the local utility company. We were done by 12 o'clock almost every single day. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably in that situation as well. So it wasn't a fact if you couldn't cut it, because it's not too hard. You work, you do a pole renewal. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you work storm and you're working all day, but most of the time you're doing a pole renewal, a pot renewal, you're done by 12 o'clock, and you're just chilling. So it wasn't that. And I still miss the work. But as time went on, I started realizing I just don't think this is the path for me. I want more. I want to be able to travel whenever I want. I don't want to have to be forced to work. I don't want to get called in at 3 a.m. Right? It was fun when you're like when I was young. It was like it was the coolest thing to get called in because my dad was in the industry. He loves overtime, and I'd be like, "Yo, dad, I just got called in," and you know he'd wake up or whatever. He'd hear me in the middle of the night getting my shit together. He's like, "Oh, you just got called in," so it was cool bond. Like it was cool, but like you just realize it more and more as time goes on. Is that what I want for the rest of my life? Some guys love it. Some guys do. Some guys feel like that's all they can do. That's all they can do. And it provided a good lifestyle for their family. And that's great. The thing is, I'll never, ever knock anyone if that's what they want to do. Right? I get shit because I quit because I couldn't cut it. But I never knock anyone for staying and providing for their family at all, right? That's my dad still does it, and he makes more money than me, right? So there's there's a lot of love for everyone who stays in it, continues it. But long story short, continued to stay till I was 20. Well, it was only about a year, right? So about a year went by, and something happened where it really was like, all right, this is your wake up call. You gotta get out. And not to get into any names or too much detail, and a lot of it probably could have been attributed to, maybe I didn't do the correct things and maybe I didn't stand up. But again, we're young. It was me and another B at the time. We were both the exact same age. We were both just turned 20 years old, and we're out working just by ourselves on Storm, me, him, and a crew leader. And again, this was a big, big, big wake up call. And a lot of people have been through a lot of things, and I see a lot of messages like, "Yo, this just happened to me." But this was scary to me. So we're working out on a Storm, and it's just a tap that burned off into a pond, and it's just number 2 copper uncovered in a pond, just laying across. And luckily, the end was still on the other side of the pole. I guess a tree just came down and broke the copper. The end's laying on this side of the pond, and then it's dipped in the pond, and then it's connected, obviously, to the main line. So I'm sitting there. One buddy's climbing up the pole. We don't have grounds on it, right? And again, it's things that I should have done to protect ourselves. But like, you can sit here and say like, "Oh yeah, you'd stand up and say something," but when you got a crew leader, that's got 30 years at the company, and you're a year in, and you're 20 years old, you know, yeah, should you have said something? For sure, but I didn't. And so we didn't put grounds up, and my buddy climbed up the pole. I had a reel of covered number 2, and I'm walking it out. I've sleeved it together from the other end that came out the pond, and I'm walking out. I'm just wearing, again, my fault. I'm not wearing my high volts. I'm just wearing regular Kevlar gloves, right? And I'm walking out the number 2, reeling it out, and all of a sudden, you hear that arc, right? Every single one of you linemen know that arc. I can't even it's like, it brings me chills if you think about that arc. And I look up, and there's just a flame from the start of the pond all the way up to the reel that I had, or almost to the end of the pond where it came out. And I quickly threw it like that. Obviously would have done anything. And I'm just like standing there. I look up, and the crew leader's over there taking it with an extendo stick, trying to change the fucking fuse. And what ended up happening was the ring got caught on the bottom, and the bottom of the door got stuck to the top of the cutout. So I basically completed the circuit for a second. And my buddy's up on the pole. He's like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like in shock. I don't even say anything. Like, I'm looking down. I'm like, did the water ground this out? Or did the covering on the number 2 copper save me? Or like, what the fuck? Like, what what just saved me? Um, so I still to this day, I don't know. A lot of guys say it was the covering. A lot of guys say the water just grounded it out before it got to you. I don't know. But that right there was like my final stretch. Like I was like, okay, this is sick. I'm 20 years old. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, like I said, we live one life. I don't want to give my life on some bullshit that, yes, could I have done a better job protecting myself? But I don't want to give my life on some bullshit that is someone in someone else's hands, right? Because they decide to do something wrong. And that right there was like, all right, let's figure something out. So to get off of that, the next couple months, I was scrambling to do anything. I was looking into drop shipping. I was looking into starting businesses. I was looking at anything. And I kind of dabbled with trading a little bit, but I never really took it serious because I never really thought I would ever need to take it serious because I thought line work was my forever. This is what I was just going to ride out to the end of my, retirement. And got into day trading. I was young, guys. I was 20 years old. I've never made under six figures ever, even to this day. Not that's not a flex. Trust me, I'm not like that. I'm just trying to give you my example of like how I came up because a lot of guys are in different positions with bills and things like that. I didn't have many bills. Right? I was very fortunate growing up. My parents, they provided a lot, and I was young. I was making a lot of money. I was living at home, so I was able to take a little bit more chances and a little bit more risk than some guys. Some guys are 19 years old, like, hey, I'm out on my own right now and living paycheck to paycheck in line work. I was very, very different. I was very, very fortunate. So I had the money to build and grow, and I lost a lot of money. To be, 100% transparent, in that process, I lost 150 grand, right? And that's the side of trading that no one really shows you. I lost a lot of money. It probably could have been closer to $200,000. In like the 3 years that I've saved up, my parents had like a little college fund for me. I dropped out of college, so like, all right, here's what you want. Do what you want with it. Blew that, right? So blew a lot of money in this process. And what happened was I was so fearful and so needing to get out, right? I just wanted to get out. I wanted to leave. I wanted to do this day trading. I wanted to get out of line work. But I knew I needed to obviously show success and justify it to my parents. Be like, hey, I want to quit, and this is what I got going on. So blew through a lot of money very, very fast. And this was in like a span of few months. Because I thought I needed to make crazy money to leave. Right? And you get addicted to it. It's like gambling. You get addicted to those dopamine hits of making a certain amount. Like there was days where I'd be sitting in the truck, we'd finish a job, I'd be sitting in the truck, I'd make 10 grand. And it felt like nothing. Right? But over time, if you're making 10 grand, you're losing 10 grand. You're losing 20 grand. So that's why it was able to build up super, super fast. And eventually I was like, man, I got to figure this shit out. Like this won't work. Now I just got stuck in line work even longer because I just blew my safety net. And that was tough. But then basically again, it's the same situation that I'm going to talk about later. You kind of get your back against the wall and you're like, okay, this has to work because I don't really want to stay in here forever. And I started finding a good amount of success. I started putting in a lot of work, and it eventually clicks. And it's not the end all because I've gone through periods of down and up, and we'll talk about that later. But it eventually clicked where I was sizing less, which is a big factor in a lot of people's failures, is they oversize. So sizing less kind of controls your emotions a little bit. And it eventually clicked for me. And I was able to build back up a good safety net. I had about 60 grand before I decided, dude, I'm going to quit. And another trigger to quitting was my fiance my fiance now, girlfriend at the time, just got out of college. She's like, oh, let's, I want to move to Nashville. You're doing really well with what you're doing. I know you want to get out. Let's just go build something there. And I was like, you know what? I never had any goals. Like I thought this was going to be my life. I thought I was just going to stay in the state I was at, work at the company that I was at forever. And she presented this and I was like, I don't hate it. Right? I don't hate it. I think it's a good opportunity to just live. And it's so cliche to just say like live your life. And my dad always jokes. He's always like, "Oh, go live your best life." But it's true. Like my parents have never left the state that they grew up. And do they live an amazing life? Sure. But they've never had that experience of going and doing something else, living in a different state, living in a city, enjoying your best life. We live one life. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And there's so many society norms and standards that people believe they have to follow. I'm telling you right now, you don't. I always love this saying, and I'll probably butcher it, but the saying of how are you going to let someone who has never lived your dream life try to tell you what to do? And it's a little bit different, but that's the idea of it. How is someone at my job going to tell me don't do this, you'll fail, or stay here forever when they've never even tried it and did it themselves? How are they supposed to tell me? How do they have any knowledge on that at all? They don't, right? But it's this society's norms of, oh, you're 19, 20 years old and you make 100 grand. You might as well stay. You'll have a great life. You'll retire when you're 60 with millions in the bank. Who the fuck wants to retire at 65, beaten up from line work with millions in the bank? What are you going to do with it? Just going to pass it down to your kids? That's what you want to do? Go for it. That's not what I want to do. I want to enjoy my life, my one life that we get, that we're blessed to have. So that was basically the idea of let's get out of here. Let's have some fun. Let's build a life in Nashville. And that's what I did. I decided, you know what? I have 60 grand in the bank, making a decent bit of money, finding success. I'm going to figure it out. Either way, I'm going to figure it out. Whether I fail and I have to do something else, fine, right? I'm going to figure this out. I can always go back to Nashville. My reality, like if I fail, my failure is just back to where I'm at currently. Seriously, I mean, yes, do I lose a little bit of seniority? Sure. But if I were to fail, my reality of life is just back to everyone else that I just left. Why not just give it a try? Like, if you don't try to chase a dream, you're going to almost live that life the rest of your life in what if? What if I would have just quit and taken that dream? Right? What if? And then you can ask, well, what if you quit and you fail? And you're like, oh, I regret quitting. Go back to where you just were. You are going back to your old reality. That is your life that you just quit. You can just go back, right? So that was my mindset as well. So when I decided to quit, did I quit a little bit early? Probably. I probably wasn't fully ready. I wasn't the best trader. I wasn't making the most consistent amount of money, but I was like, you know what, whatever, right? Well, let's give it a go. And my parents were extremely supportive. My dad's always been a supportive person to me, but I was a little bit surprised how supportive he was because I never even told him about this incident that happened that was my trigger to get out. And he eventually found out from someone because someone came up to him and he was like, man, I'm so glad Noah got out, so he didn't have to, because of that and my dad's like, wait, what? What happened? Just because a lot of people know my dad in the company and they all would talk about, oh, here's your son, blah, blah, blah. And he came up to him and said, yeah, oh, you didn't know? And I get a call from my dad like a year later. He's like, dude, you didn't tell me this? I'm like, why would I tell you? Right? Like that's scary, right? So, even before him knowing that, he was so supportive, which is what you need, right? You need support from your family, you need support from your significant other. And we'll get into that. Like support from your significant other is massive, especially in trading or especially when trying to build a business. All right. So quit, went to Nashville, got a pretty cool apartment and just lived it out, man. Just started trading. And did that for about I would say about 6 months, and started getting my name out there very, very well, and was getting paid by other trading companies, was selling mentorships, and was doing very, very well with trading and business, and decided, you know what, I want to step up my life a little bit, right? I want to enjoy this even more. So what do? We went out, we got a $4,000 a month apartment, high rise, beautiful view of the city, and that's what you guys see on my TikTok. It's flashy, it's cool. It's one of the best things we ever did. Yes, we spent a lot of money, but it was one of the best things I've ever done in my entire life. We had family come and visit. I had guys from line work come and visit, and I felt like the man. I felt like the man. People would come, they'd be like, "Man, this thing is sweet. A 2-bedroom facing the city, $4,000 a month. Like, dude, you're killing it." And we were doing really well. We got in that whole lifestyle of Nashville where you're drinking, you're out partying. We went out and got basically steakhouse dinner every week. Like, it was a life that every single person sees online, and that's what you want. Truly. I mean, maybe some guys don't, but a lot of people my age, that's what you want. And that will only last for so long, because a lot of times you'll get complacent and you'll be spending too much money, and that's what happened to me. I was spending so much money, and I just felt like I was the man, and this life was amazing, and I kind of lost track of constantly that focus that I had, the back against the wall. You need to get out, you need to keep grinding and work, and I felt like, oh man, I made it, like I'm good. This will work forever. And things started slowly, the market changed, the business wasn't doing as well because I wasn't doing as well trading, and things just kind of fell off, and I was like, wow, all right, I've done this before, I've lost money, back against the wall, I figured it out. And that's just how I've always been. That's how I've always been. I've just always figured it out. And that's how a lot of you guys are. You guys just, you'll figure it out. Truly. Like, if you don't figure it out, go back to where you were. That's it. So, and that's a good mindset to have, a bad mindset to have, because if you know that you always have this backup, maybe you won't work as hard, but I personally know the benefit of being out of line work, the freedom you get. So there was no chance I was ever going back. So for me, it was life or death, back against the wall. So downgraded my lifestyle a little bit, to kind of take the ease off of trading, because one thing about trading is it will be way harder for you if you're spending too much money. It's way harder not having as much money coming in to find success, because you start panicking. You're like, man, I got $4,000 apartment. I just spent $10,000 on my credit card this month. And then things are like, oh, whoa, trading got a lot harder. It's a little bit easier when you got a bunch of money in the bank and your lifestyle is low. So downgraded a little bit. Still had a pretty sweet apartment. It was like $3,000 a month, right? It was still pretty sweet. It was like a loft in downtown Nashville, but just spent a little bit less money, right? Just kind of hung out with my friends more, did free shit, played pickleball, played cheap golf, right? So it was just a little bit of a step back. And what's funny is I wouldn't take anything back. Like, yes, did I go and I spent 150 grand, $200,000 that year that I was going crazy? I did. But I was 23 years old. I'm 26 right now, recovered, right? Like, money will come and go. Experiences and memories, like all my friends talk about, oh, do you remember when we were in this? Do you remember we did this? Do you remember when we had that pregame, that Halloween party? Like those memories you will never forget, ever forget. And money, I promise you boys that, that make 200 grand, you're not thinking about the money you spent 5 years ago, right? You don't really care, but maybe memories you built, that's what you're thinking of. And that's what's coming back to you. So the best thing I ever could have done was to make that move and do what we did. Right. And then I also, when we stepped back our lifestyle even more, it was still amazing. I still had a great time. I never missed what I had, because we were just constantly creating new memories. And it was great. Fast forward a year, or a year from that point, where I was struggling, right? Things weren't going too well. I still had some money in the bank, but man, I couldn't get anything to click. Trading wasn't clicking. I stopped selling anything just because if I'm not making any money, well, I'm not going to sell anything. So things went from a lot of income to not much income. And I just had to figure it out, right? I just spent months and months and months back testing and figuring out a strategy and building and building and building, where eventually I was able to find the strategy that I'm using now that I continuously grow and build. And this was like the first time where I was like, man, like before I felt like, man, this isn't going to be repeatable. Like I was like, yes, I'm making really good money right now, but is this gonna sustain? Am I just getting lucky? Maybe. Now, this is like the first time where I'm like, yeah, like this is sustainable. This is repeatable. This is forever. And it's because of the work I had to do because your back's against the wall. And man, that's just what happens. And it's people are just so scared to quit and they're so scared to chase a dream, but like if you have any bit of pride or any bit of work ethic, you're going to figure it out. You're 100% going to figure it out. And this is the last time I'll say this. If you do not figure it out and you fail, you tried. You chased a dream. You're doing more than 90%, 95% of the entire world, right? You are chasing that dream. And if you fail, you go back to them. You go right back side by side with that person that never chased a dream, never tried to find success, never built these fun ass memories, being 20 some years old, living in a downtown city, just fucking living it up, right? And if that's not the lifestyle you want, well, maybe you want to do something else. Maybe you want to go out west and you want to say, I want to live out west for a year and I want to fly fish and I want to fucking hike and I want to do all this shit. And I want to do that for a year. And I don't want to be at this job. I want to be able to wake up, work for an hour, close my computer and be done. That's the dream that I want to chase. That's what I want to do, right? There's so many different avenues and lifestyles you can build with trading. And that's what we're going to get into here in a second because I don't want to bore you too much about my, my come up, but it's good to kind of get that background to understand what I went through. So again, struggled back against the wall one last time and figured it out, right? Figured it out. My fiance, girlfriend at the time, got into physician's assistant school in South Carolina. So I was like, you know what? My time in Nashville has been fun. It's been good. I need that little step back to a little bit more of reality because things spent a lot of money there and I need to build, need to grow, need to focus on, spending a little bit less money and just kind of building up what I got going on. So was able to build up, started making good amount of money, big months and big payouts, big months on my live account. And I was like, man, I want to get back into teaching. And there's two things about teaching. Some people are correct. People do it for money. And sometimes people just do it out of, I'm not going to say they only do it out of love and boredom. But for me, it was both. I know that my trading gets 10 times easier and better when you have another income coming in. Simple as that. Your trading gets way less stressful, gets way easier to be patient, gets way easier to allow trades to play out when you do have a little bit of side income coming in. Simple as that. So that was another reason I wanted to get back into teaching and coaching. Second reason was, dude, the group of guys that I have, seeing them win, seeing them go full-time trading. I've had two new students go full-time trading that were linemen. Seeing that happen is one of the most fulfilling things. I'm not trying to sound cliche or whatever. Seeing that happen was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever experienced, of being like, hey man, I want to go through the same path as you. And I want to build and get out of line work and chase this freedom. One of my students that just quit, he loves golf. Absolutely loves golf. He's like, you know what, man, I'm finding success. I'm going to quit. I'm going to go play golf every single day. He makes his money and you don't hear from him for the rest of the day. He texts me, he's like, yo, man, I just shot a 75. I'm like, dude, way to live your fucking life, right? That's the goal of why I wanted to build this and start this. Um, so yeah, that's what ended up happening. I ended up building a strategy, ended up building a group of guys. Right now we have 25 linemen. If you do want in on our group, we have a lot of success in this group, a lot of guys going full time. It will be in the description below to kind of check that out. So from there, I built what a lot of guys wanted, and a lot of the guys like, hey man, like I'm working, I can't trade during the day, right? Like I'm not able, I'm missing the trades that you're taking. I'm doing, it's just tough to be able to follow along with the market. So my next journey, my next path was building out automation. So what happened was I was able to take the strategy that I've developed over the last, I would say over the last year, that I've been developed, and was able to kind of get that coded into an automation. So now it trades without me even having to look at the chart. It is a Monday morning. I haven't even looked at the chart once. I'm literally just letting automation do what I want to do. So take the freedom of day trading and just make it even more freedom, because now you have something just trading your system for you. So that was the next path that I wanted to build, to get those guys that work full time. That's a lot of people struggle with. It's like, I can't get into trading because I work full time. All right, well, here you go. Right, here's that next business, that next idea that I've been wanting to do for a while, and finally executed on it. So that has been the journey, and that's where we're at right now. I wouldn't have taken back anything I did. I felt like I made the best decisions. Yes, could I have changed things? Could I have saved more money? Would I have more money right now? For sure. But those are memories that you build, that dream that you chase, you'll never get it back. Like, that is just something that you just have to go do, right? And we live one life, fellas. We live one life. We have one opportunity in life, and for you to be unhappy, for you to feel like you're stuck, it's a scary thing, because once you are stuck, you're stuck. And a lot of the guys in the group are a little bit older, right? They may have family, they may have kids. And sometimes, boys, it gets to a point where if you wait too long, could potentially get too late, because you don't have the ability to take that jump. I was 21 years old when I took that leap. I quit. I didn't have any responsibility. I had money saved up, and I was just good. Like, I didn't have kids to worry about. I didn't have mortgage to worry about. I didn't have a house to worry about. I didn't have a family to worry about, right? It was just me, my girlfriend, and my dog. And I was able to take that leap. And a lot of guys, it becomes tough to be able to do that, but it's not impossible. I mean, look at some of the biggest millionaires right now, billionaires right now, the powerful people in the world. They don't get their wealth till 35, 40 years old, right? And they're building something great, but they're figuring it out, right? So if that takes you coming home after work and sitting down and studying and getting on the charts and trading at night, that's what it's going to have to take. If that requires you to take a week of unpaid, that's what I did. I took a week of unpaid, and I was like, I got to figure this shit out, right? If it requires you to do that, it's just, those are the sacrifices that you have to make to find success in this. All right. So now that we've talked about the glamour, the awesomeness, the upside of trading, we got to obviously talk about the downside, because I'm not someone who's going to just sit here and be like, yeah, it's easy. It's not easy. I'll never sell someone anything if they get into it just expecting easy money, right? Ever. This is going to be something that will beat you down. So let's get into it. So you see online that day trading has a 95% failure rate, which is probably true, but it is a little skewed. The reason that it's skewed is because people quit before they get. You ever seen that picture? And I'll post it right here. It's like one person's like mining, and the other person stops. And the person that stops mining gets like right before all the diamonds. And they say it about gambling. It's like, oh, keep gambling until, eventually it'll hit. But with trading is the people fail because they get to the point of finding success and then they quit. Here's why they quit. you get to a point where you develop a strategy that works. And a lot of strategies work in the markets. Our strategy works extremely well. But then you could ask, well, why isn't everyone finding success? The problem is you get to that point of you're so close because you've developed a strategy, and that's a lot of it. A lot of it is just developing the strategy, seeing the strategy, letting it play out. That's your edge. The problem is people fail because they can't handle the emotional side of trading. And this goes back to where people say, oh, some people just can't cut it in line work. I'll tell you right now, line work is absolutely nothing compared to the toll that trading puts on someone. Mentally, physically, yes. Obviously line work takes it. But I was 19 years old. It physically ain't shit, right? Like that didn't bother me. Day trading will destroy you mentally until you figure out one thing, and it's discipline, right? And a lot of times, if you don't, pretty much every single time, if you don't follow a set of rules, you'll fail. If you have absolutely zero discipline in the outside of your life, you fail. If you are chasing money, you fail. If you're over leveraging because you're chasing money, you fail. So the thing about trading is, if you can just be a robot, which is another reason why I built this automation, you'll find success. Because you develop a strategy, you have no emotions tied in, and you'll find success. A lot of guys just cannot sit and be able to follow a set of rules. Over trading, over leveraging, taking outside of their strategy, having no edge, taking trades outside their model, taking trades while they're busy at work, right? And that is where that success rate comes in, or that failure rate comes in. So don't take that 95% of traders fail and be like, oh, it's impossible to succeed. All right. Like I said, I've had 2 students in the last 6 months go full-time trading. And I have another student that went full-time. I have 2 other students that have gone full-time, and I've been doing this for multiple years, finding success. So it's not something that is impossible. It's definitely hard. So a lot of guys ask me, is trading worth it? It's worth it if you can have a shred of discipline. It's worth it if you can follow your rules. If you can't, and you're an emotional person, and you get tilted out, and let's say you're addicted to gambling, it will never work for you, ever. Don't even bother wasting your money. Don't even bother messaging me saying, hey, I want to get into it. Just take this video and turn it off right now, because you'll never find success. If you're someone that's disciplined and you can say, hey, here's a set of rules, follow them. Exact. Can you do it? If you can, you are going to find success in trading. You will. Because what happens is you'll keep developing an edge, and you'll keep finding a system that will continuously work. And you'll only get better at reading the markets. You only get better at reading the charts. It just comes up into this. It's the emotions, and it's the brain getting in the way. Nobody likes to lose money. The best loser in trading wins. It's how it works. If you take a loss and you're like, I'm good, whatever, move on the next day, I'll make it back and some the following day. That's the correct mindset to have. So you've sat here and you have listened to my story, listened to what it takes to become a trader. Now let's get into a little bit of the chart and show you guys what I would do and the setup and the process of even how to get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Trading View. And this is going to be your charting software. What this does is it basically tells you every single stock that you need to look at, every single future, stock, crypto, whatever. And it kind of breaks it down for you where you can analyze and you can view the chart and view the stock. So what I trade is I trade MNQ, which is NASDAQ futures. And this probably looks very, very confusing to you. And I'm not going to get into too many details. But with trading, what we are doing is we are capitalizing on a move, whether it's a large move throughout the day or whether it's just a quick short move. So what I'm doing is I'm trading NASDAQ futures. And what I look for is retracements of a move. Okay, so how the market works is the market does this. The market will go up, it'll come down, it'll go up, come down, go up. And then you'll find this a little bit of the decision of whether or not the market wants to continue to go higher or continue to drop lower. So from this point on is a lot of times the market will break, come up, and then do this. Right? And that is essentially how the market moves. The market is not just going to go straight up. Right? It is an exchange of buying and selling. And if there is too much basically supply of sellers, the market is going to want to pull back to regain more buyers in order to drive the market higher. So what I like to do is I like to recognize a trend, and I like to see when trends develop, and then I'll take a retracement tool and I'll look for 50% of that move. And when I see 50% of that move, a lot of time that is what's called discount. And you'll basically look for a discounted range of 50% to around 70% for price to return to then retrace higher. So for price to come up, retrace lower, and then run into here, right? Run back up to the high to continue that trend, right? And that is the basis of our strategy. Then from here, you take this all the way up to here. You look again for that retracement into that discount, and then look for price to rerun that high. Right? And that is essentially how I was able to build my automation, is to basically run that for us. Now, with trading, you can make money both directions. You can make money as the market's going up. You can make money as the market's going down. So here as the market's going down, again, price coming down, returning to discount, selling back off to this low, right? And that is what we look for when we are trading the markets. So if I were to go into here, so what I would look for is I sit on the 30-minute time frame, and I see, you can see the automation essentially playing out already, the mind of its own. So what I do is I'd look for this low returning up to this high, right? Because now we're continuing this trend. We're taking this low point to this high point, and I'd look for price to return to this 50%, which is, in our discount, in order for price to continue higher, right? So we'd look for price to bounce here and then return back up to the high and continue that trend, and our stop loss is here at this level. And I'm not going to get into too many specifics because a lot of this is probably very confusing to you guys, but that is the idea of trading. And you're like, well, that's easy. Like, why is trading so hard? Right? That looks pretty easy. And you would think, right? Like, look at this. This was one of the automations that played out, right? We basically took our high, our low to our high to our low, and we were able to get into our short and target down into here, right? So that's basically how our automation works. And you're like, well, why is trading so hard? Well, it's hard because look at all of this stuff on the chart, right? A lot of that, basically, it wants you to then go take a trade. You're forcing things. You're very emotional. If this, let's say this trade loses, you get emotional, right? And that is where trading becomes tough. That's where trading is hard, right? But what is amazing about what we've built and the group that we've developed is we basically created an edge in the market that will be profitable over time. And I have to understand that our strategy over time has a 37% win rate. Now, a lot of these are break evens. I'm not going to get into that too much. But with a 37% win rate, we have to acquire around 60% losers. So we're going to lose 60% of the time. Right now, it's around 50% because of the break even skew that. So if I know that I lose 50% of the time, I have to be able to just take that on the chin and say, I just lost. It is what it is. I'm going to move on, right? Because I know over time, our winners will outweigh our losers over time. So the strategy that I developed and coded and built, the automation, with only risking $300 per trade, that's it. We're only risking $300 a trade. We look for around $500 to $600 of profit. So if I have a 50% win rate with those statistics, well, then I'm going to be more profitable than not, right? So I have to be able to take that loss and say, you know what? take the loss, moving on, because I know over time I'm going to be profitable. So you can see right here, our losses are $240. Our winners are in $500, right? So I mean here, multiple losers in a row, but you have 1 or 2 days that basically makes up for that loss and then continues to build. Okay, now if you wanted to up your risk, let's say, well, right now we have it set at 300. If let's say you wanted to move this to $1,000 of risk, right? The automation will basically say, we're going to move from risking $300 to $1,000. And now that turns into $40,000 profit over taking the exact same trades. Okay? So trading is a leverage game. So once you develop the strategy, once you develop your edge, it's all about just continuously building more and more leverage. So if I can get into a trade and I can say, I know this trade works with $300 of risk, let me put this at $1,000 of risk. Now I'm risking $1,000 to make $2,000, right? Or $1,700 or $1,500, right? And that is basically how you continuously build your trading, is when you are able to make these bigger winners than your losers. And that is essentially the game of trading. It's a game of probability, and you just develop an edge and you continuously leverage into that edge. Okay? So that is a little bit of the automation. It works for gold and NQ, and this does it solely in the background. In the background, it enters and exits for me fully. So on Friday, we got into a trade. It went break even. It went up, got up into here, was up in profit, and then eventually came back down and hit break even. Right here, I'm not even looking at the charts at all. Right? Price is going up. Price shorts the position. Right? And it goes down here and closes. It does it all for you. So a lot of the guys that want to get into trading, I never had this. I never had this to help me in the background while I was at work. But this is something that I've wanted to build for a while, and give guys the opportunity to have this working in the background. And the statistics are amazing. You know, who wouldn't want an extra 40 grand, in the background, right? Just kind of doing its thing for half of the year. Okay. So if you want information on that, that will also be down in the description for you guys to check out. It is a monthly fee to be able to do this. And then what will happen is we'll set up a call. We'll get on a call and I will help you set it up and explain all of this to you. Okay, so that is another opportunity for you guys to be able to get into trading. And then, from there, that gives you that step and that foot forward to say, all right, if I have, 40 grand coming in extra on the side, well then, maybe I can work a little bit less overtime and I can put more time into learning trading even more. And, that will help me get out of the position that I'm in right now. All right. So that is the idea, boys. Get TradingView. It's a good charting software. Watch YouTube, learn more, join our group, whatever you have to do to make this work. I promise you it is worth everything. Everything, guys. I wake up at 8 o'clock. I have no stress. I'm not worried about going into work on Sunday. Oh, no, it's not Sunday night. I'm not worried about going into work on Monday. I look forward to what I'm doing. I wake up and I'm like, yes, the market is open. Let's get after it. I work for about an hour a day, right? I'll make content. I'll trade. I'll let the automation do its thing. I'll make updates to the automation. I'll do classes with students, and that's it, right? I absolutely love what I do. I don't work a whole lot. I get a lot of freedom. We've been in Florida the last 2 weekends in a row. It's just, you get the ability to get your time back, your freedom back. You get your ability to just live the one life that we are so blessed to have. And that's it, right? And that's what we fight for. It's what all of us are fighting for, to provide for our family and to just enjoy the time that we have on this earth. And that's it, guys. I appreciate every single one of you guys for joining up. I appreciate you guys for watching. I appreciate the support. I hope that I inspired one of you guys. If you made it this far in the video, I hope I inspire one of you guys to take the same path. It's very fulfilling for me to see and to hear stories of guys that get inspired by my TikTok, and hopefully now YouTube, as I develop and build more YouTube videos and more content for you guys. So appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. See ya.